Verdicts are supposed to fall from a gavel. Mine came from a breath. I stepped off the stand, caught the judge's hand, and pressed a tiny silver locket into her palm. Then the room exhaled, and later, when the real will was read, the mistress didn't cry. She screamed. My name is Laurel Pierce. I'm an architect by trade, and by instinct I build things that stand in wind. And for years, I let my husband Damien Pike take the pictures and shake the hands while I did the math and the midnight fixes, you know what I mean? The quiet work that doesn't trend, but keeps the beams from failing. When the doctors said pancreatic cancer and the kind of timeline that makes people avoid your eyes, I promised my twins Miles and Eden I'd still be there for the school projects and the messy glue guns, and I meant it. I still mean it even now, just differently. At first, I explained away the perfume on Damien's suits and the meetings that crept from 7 to midnight as business. Then Lila Moreau showed up. Consultant European, the smile that scans a room like it already belongs to her. And suddenly, she was everywhere in our office, at our dinners, walking through our house like an investor inspecting trim. And I did what people do when they're tired, and trying to keep the peace, I let it slide. Until one Tuesday, the house was quiet, and a draft lifted the corner of the library rug. The floor panel shifted, and there it was, a safe I knew. In my bones, the combination was the date of our first deal, because Damien loves ceremonies, and inside I found bonds offshore, noise I didn't want to know, and one document I had to, a will with our names on it, but not our will, not the boring, protective one we wrote years ago. This one said, if I died, my shares and personal fortune would go to a beloved partner and confidant named Lila, not my kids, not the trust, while an unfiled conservatorship petition sat underneath like a loaded spring painting. Me as incompetent. Paranoid. A woman lost in fog so my husband could become my guardian and hold the pen that erased me. There's a click that happens when fear burns off, and clarity snaps into place that day. The click was so loud, I swear it echoed off the glass. I didn't call the big family firm because I knew where their retainer loyalty lived. I called Raphael Boone, a trial lawyer who once fought a rezoning near a park for regular people and won with a briefcase older than his car. He came over, listened without interrupting while I laid it all out, and then he nodded at the water and said, "This is theft with a choir singing over it." Yeah, that happened, and we turned my solarium into a war room with orchids for witnesses. We built two things, a shield and a sword. The shield was the Pierce Family Heritage Trust, funded with assets that predated my marriage, and the founding shares that were designated to me as intellectual property. When we started Pierce Meridian, the language lived in a founder's agreement. Most folks forgot existed, but I filed it in 3 places because my dad taught me to keep a copy of anything men swear no one will ever question. Trustees would be Raphael, my sister Anna from Santa Fe, who loves me enough to argue, and Stratford. Trust of New York, Damien Bard by name beneficiaries, were Miles and Eden, period. The sword was proof years of receipts that I had quietly copied, because I know my own company's arteries. Emails, wire transfers, reimbursements that didn't match the work. And Kiana, the forensic accountant, Raphael drew a clean map that led to a Cayman shell with a pretty name, Hartwell, Pacific Limited, 47 million, and change had been taking a long, slow walk out the back door in increments designed to look like shrugs. I recorded a video testimony in my kitchen at 11 p.m. If you're seeing this, I'm gone. And here's what happened. And then we solved the delivery problem because if Damien smelled the plan, he would bury Raphael in motions until my body quit, and the paper followed. I wore a silver locket I'd had since college, a lighthouse engraved on the front. We had it hollowed and tucked a micro USB inside with an encrypted letter that named a safe deposit box at Sentinel First National Bank downtown. Box 913. A box I opened the year we started the company, and never mentioned again. The file held the key string the bank manager would require from a judge. It clicked closed like a secret learning how to breathe. To bait the conservatorship, I let certain sentences trail off, forgot a name or two in front of the right gossips, and the petition landed in Washington Superior Court, with Judge Harper Quinn, an eyebrow that could flatten a closing argument. A former prosecutor who doesn't love theater unless it helps her see who threw the brick. The morning of the hearing, my house put on sorrow, like a costume Damien wore charcoal. And that look men rehearse for sympathy, points Lila adjusted his tie with fingertips, that lingered, my nurse. Rosa zipped me into a cream dress because I wanted to look like myself, not a diagnosis. And when we took our seats, Raphael looked small across from the phalanx of lawyers, which is never a bad way to be underestimated. Vincent Kane told the court a bedtime story about a noble husband protecting a fragile wife. Lila did elegant tears. The room leaned toward pity until Raphael said, "Your Honor, my client asks to be heard," and Judge Quinn turned to me, Ms. Pierce. "I won't force you," I said. "If my mind is on trial, it should get a say." And I walked through 10 years of work like I was laying out beam schedules. Load paths wind sheer 3 extra concrete pours on a cantilever that tried to break the budget. Dates, numbers, suppliers, then. I turned toward Damien and named what they called paranoia, a no-limit corporate card in a consultant's pocket. A sunset logo shell in the Cayman's 3 transfers that left our accounts after hours. March 3rd. April 17th. May 9th. Teenagers sneaking out a window. Kane popped up, the judge told him to sit, and the pain that had been pacing finally planted itself on my chest. The room narrowed like a lens. I heard the bailiff move, felt Rosa's hand, took 2 steps off the stand, put both palms on the wood of the bench, looked Judge Quinn in the eyes and said, "For Miles, for Eden, the sentinel holds it," and I closed her fingers around the locket as the breath left me, not like surrender, like delivery. The news trucks did what they do. They argued about whether sick women should testify and whether men in suits get bonus points for basic decency. Damien played grieving widower under a halo of microphones. Lila stood a half step back like she could already see our foyer with her art on the walls and in chambers. Late the building quieter than a library. Judge Quinn felt along the locket's edge until she found the seam. The USB clicked free. She called Raphael, issued a sealed order, narrow and immediate, authorizing the opening of Box 913 with a court officer present. And at dawn the next day, a vault door side open. A bank manager used 2 keys and a performance. Raphael slid a leather folio from a steel throat and laid out 3 things in a private room. My real will, dated 3 weeks before the hearing, witnessed by people who don't know. Damien notarized in my kitchen with the refrigerator humming. Binders Kayana built with tabs and colored flags that made 47 million look like a road you could drive backward. And a laptop with my testimony and a second USB labeled for the kids. The judge watched with her jaw set, like a woman feeling something and refusing to show all of it. Then she said, "Schedule a reading, keep it tidy. Invite Stratford Trust. Invite the DA." Damien insisted the reading happen at his firm, because geography makes some men feel tall. The conference room had a view of the Sound, and a table long enough to land a small plane. Raphael sat at the head without asking. The Stratford rep took notes like a person not auditioning for anyone. A plainclothes detective from the DA's office, Alvarez, leaned on the wall like gravity was his side gig, and Damien arrived 5 minutes late the way people do when they think time reports to them. Lila polished to the eyelashes. Kane smiling like a verdict was a foregone conclusion. Then Raphael read, "Not the planted will, mine the Pierce family." Heritage Trust receives my personal assets and my founding shares. 51% controlling interest in Pierce Meridian, carved out in our 2004 Founders Agreement, as my IP contribution. Trustees are Raphael, my sister Anna Stratford. Trust beneficiaries are Miles and Eden, with staged distribution and carve-outs. Damien said those shares are community property. Raphael didn't even look up, they were expressly carved out. Your signature is on it twice, and then the clause that mattered most upon the death of a founding partner. The executor acting for the controlling shareholder may call an immediate board vote to reevaluate leadership as executor. I called that vote this morning. The motion of no confidence in Mr. Pike passed unanimously. He is removed as CEO, effective immediately. The room went very quiet, the way rooms do when a crown rolls off a head. Damien slammed his fist and said, "You can't do this." Raphael said, "It's already done." Then he opened the second binder, and the sword began to sing dates, amounts, transaction IDs. Hartwell Pacific repeated until the pretty name turned into a barcode. 3 emails routed at midnight with a signature stamp that would make a junior associate whistle. Alvarez stepped off the wall and said, "Moreau, you'll need to come with me to answer questions about wire fraud and embezzlement." And I watched the polish slide off Lila like a costume that never fit. She went all eyes and teeth, lunged for the document, and let out a sound that wasn't words or grief. It was a rip, a silk-tearing noise that made the water glasses tremble. Alvarez caught her arm. She thrashed and spat. "Do something. Damien, do something. You promised me." And he didn't move. He stared at the pages like a man looking down at a map of a town that used to be his. Cuffs clicked. Loud, real. And she broke. "It was his idea," she said into her shoulder. Alvarez turned to Damien. "You'll need to come downtown and answer some questions, too." Damien tried on a threat, like a jacket he found in the back of a closet. "One phone call will clear this up," Alvarez said. "You can call from the station, and that's where I leave you. On the scream. On the moment." A woman who measured my windows realized the walls were load-bearing. Because this isn't a story about comfort. It's about a person you wrote off taking one last step and using it to move a mountain. So tell me, did I go too far or exactly far enough? Is justice still justice when it's clean on paper but messy in a living room? Would you have pressed that locket into the judge's hand if it meant your last breath was a delivery and not a goodbye drop? Your take in the comments, call out the parts that hit, share your story. If you've ever been underestimated and had to build your own verdict, and if this spoke to you, hit like, share it with someone who needs a spine today, and subscribe so you don't miss the next time the quiet voice wins.